right, welcome back to another episode of the 100% Wild Podcast. I'm Mark Kenyon with Wired to Hunt, and with me in his pickup truck is Matt Drury. How are you, man?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Good. I like it. We've got kind of the mobile setup today.
That's
this
right.
Is like the run and gun podcasting episode.
I just jumped out of a tree stand, actually. It's today, as of the day we're filming, it's the 31st. It's Halloween, and I can't go tonight because I got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old at home. So I definitely wanted to get out there because the pressure is through the roof today. I mean, it's like 30.25 here, and it's a nice northwest wind, 30 degrees. I mean, sun shining. It was a beautiful morning, but the deer didn't get the memo. I saw maybe, 7-8 does and a little 1.5 buck. So just not what we were hoping for. And such a good morning, and we stuck it out pretty long. I mean, we were in there till 10:30. So, just sometimes they don't move like you would hope they would. But that's why you got to keep going.
That's true. So we've had some pretty good weather over the last week across a lot of the Midwest. Have you been able to hunt any more of this cold front that we've been having?
Yeah, I've been picking and choosing my battles here because we've had so much, family Halloween stuff going on. It's one of those deals where I just, with my family, I want to make sure and be there for all the big events, right? So I only got to hunt I hunted Wednesday and I hunted Saturday, but I missed Friday and I missed Sunday, and those were 2 really good days. I know a lot of guys killed some really good deer those days. Were you out in Ohio during that period?
Yeah, I've hunted every day since last week, Wednesday. The first 3 or 4 days of that were in Michigan, and then the last 3 days were in Ohio. So Ohio, I was there Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And that was probably the best activity I saw this whole time period. Saturday, I saw 3 different bucks cruising, all like decent bucks, like 3 or older. And then yesterday morning, so Monday morning, I passed on a nice 3 or 4-year-old 9-pointer, maybe 130 class, pretty cool looking deer. So starting to see those bucks moving around. I didn't see any chasing. But definitely those bucks are starting to cruise late in the morning or earlier in the afternoon. And, it's happening. It's ramping up. It's just a matter of time before it breaks loose. I thought it would be breaking loose really great, last week during that cold front. It just didn't happen where I was at. But, there could be a number of kind of factors that cause that. Like I was telling you a couple minutes ago before we started recording, I had a little bit of bad luck. The first night of the cold front, I went into a stand, and when I got in there, the winds were way worse than I realized and swirling and gusting really bad. So after sitting up there for like 10, 20 minutes, I was like, screw this. This is bad. This is not a safe hunt. So I bailed out and completely gave up on that hunt because I didn't want to educate any deer. The next day, I had one blind that I thought I could get into and hunt with the wind I had that day. So I snuck into that blind. I get into it, close the door, and I hear the sound. And I look up above me, and the blind is infested with bees. So I bail out of there. The next night, I go hunt another good stand for Holyfield. I get in there. Deer are moving like crazy, like an hour and a half, 2 hours before daylight. There's 15 does out feeding in front of me. I'm feeling really good. Like, this is the night he could show. And then the neighbor shows up with his chainsaw and starts revving that up and clears the whole area. So it's just been like one thing after another like that. So I'm hoping I gave Michigan a break, gave it like a 3-4 day break. I'm back now, hoping that my luck will change. So we'll see.
Yeah. So you've still gotten good pictures of Holyfield on your cameras though, right?
Not since I started hunting. So the 24th, that day I went in with a bad wind, or I realized it was bad wind after I got there. That was the 24th. That's the last trail camera picture I have of him on my cell cam. Now, I haven't checked the other cameras that are just running all the time, so I don't know what's going on in those. But I don't know. No daylight sightings, no trail camera pictures. It's been a little bit grim. So we've got cold weather, though, this week again, too, so I'm hoping things will change. Tonight looks pretty good. It's like in the 30s, highs in the 30s tonight. So I'm going to sneak into one of my better stands and give it a go and just cross all my fingers and toes.
this might be your last year to do that on Halloween, buddy. So for a long time. So
That's
enjoy.
true.
I hope you kill something.
That's true. I didn't think about that. The little one could change things in the future. Somehow I need to convince him that trick or treating is no fun. That sitting in a tree stands way better.
Yeah. Good luck convincing your wife of that.
Yeah, that's probably going to be the harder trick.
Yeah.
So
last week I was out Wednesday and had an encounter with a nice 4.5-year-old, just like you maybe mid 120s, not what I'm after in here. And then Saturday I actually, with the pre-rut we kind of start calling a little bit, and I actually grunted and called a deer up out of the timber that is new to the farm. He's a 4.5-year-old, good body, big body deer, but he had 13 points actually. Just it wouldn't score. I mean, he maybe be in the mid 20s as well. Just not what we're looking for. But it was encouraging to me to see that reaction and to see, to your point, that I think they're starting to kind of get in that mood. And my Reconyx cameras is on my place, I'm starting to see more and more daylight activity, although it's still kind of fringe daylight. They're starting to show themselves a little bit more. And on this farm, historically, once that starts happening, that means we're getting ready to, I have about a 10-day window where I can really kill something, just about any shooter on the farm. That 10-day window, I can usually get on them. I just got to be here. So I think we're getting close to that period, but we got a little bit of a warm front here. I think, honestly, in my opinion, I kind of missed some of the really good days, and I think I missed what may have been some of the good walking activity. And I feel like they might actually, the older deer might actually start, getting with the first available doe. And I feel like my next window might be next week, but I'm still going to go, obviously. Like Dad and Mark say, it's hard to miss this period. You just got to be out there. You got to go. But with the way everything's kind of trending and we're going into that full moon on the 4th, I think, it's going to get crazy nuts, the 5th, 6th through the 10th, which in Missouri, that's right before gun season. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Anything can happen at that time of year. Just got to be out there. So
yeah,
I'm definitely looking forward to it. And it's funny you mentioned back to your encounter where you grunted in that buck. The buck that I passed on yesterday, I grunted him in too. So they're definitely, becoming more interested in that kind of thing. And that's something, and I think most people know this, but we're definitely in that time period when those types of calling techniques can work about as well as they will all year. So
yeah. I don't even pull the call out until about right now.
Yeah. So since I'm gonna head out soon here and hunt tonight, and since you've got big trick or treating plans, should we get to our question of the day today?
Yeah, let's do it. The question of the day is brought to you by Cabela's, the world's foremost outfitter.
Hi, my name is Roger Mulrooney. I'm from Manahawkin, New Jersey, and my question is, how much of an impact does heavy hunting pressure have on deer movement, even when other factors like weather, the rut, and the moon phase are favorable for deer to move? I really enjoyed the podcast, and I've learned a lot. Thank you.
All right. That's a great question, I think. Do you want to take a first stab at it, Matt, or do you want me to give it a go?
Sure. I mean, I think, if it's the right time of year, I think you get away with a little more hunting pressure. It depends what kind of pressure it is. I mean, if you're talking about, hey, you might have busted one on the way into your timber set, at 5:30 or 5:45 in the morning, that's one kind of pressure. But if you got, guys, walking all through your property, or say your farmer's in there, messing with fence rows or whatever, that's not ideal. I mean, I don't care if it's a great moon and the weather, the temperature's right, and it's the 5th through the 10th or whatever the case may be. I mean, the less amount of intrusion that you can get, the better. But I do think you can get away with a little more right now than you typically can. How about you?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think you're right about this is that time of year that you can get away with a little bit more. You can maybe afford to make a mistake and still recover from it. But in general, I do think that pressure trumps all. as far as, how factors that influence deer movement. So to his question, even with a great moon, even with the great temperatures, all those things are great. If you've got too much hunting pressure and you've educated those deer, doesn't matter. You're just not, especially with a mature buck, you're just not going to see that movement, or not as much at least. So at least the way I think about things is do everything you possibly can to reduce human hunting pressure on those deer, and then you can use factors like the moon or weather or whatever it is to properly time your hunts. And that kind of goes back into that whole idea of hunting pressure. So a great way to manage your own hunting pressure is to be selective about when you hunt. And we talk about this a lot, and your dad and Mark Drury talk about it a lot too. It's, making sure that you're picking the right times to go to certain places. So, you don't want to go to your best stand all of October or every time you go out and hunt. You want to wait for the right time of year, and you want to wait for the right conditions present, so when you do go in there, so when you do make that impact, which you will in some way make an impact when you go in, at least you're going in there on a day when you have the best possible chances. So that's something you definitely need to factor in. You got to look at your impact on the deer herd. You also need to think about what your neighbors might be doing and how that might be impacting deer, and think about how that hunting pressure around you influences deer movement, influences what you may or may not see. I don't know, and it might be different too depending on where you hunt. Like you said, there's different kinds of pressure and there's different relative amounts of pressure. So hunting pressure on a 500-acre farm in Iowa that is surrounded by, maybe 2 other 1,000-acre farms that each have like 2 guys hunting it, that's going to be very different than a 40-acre piece in Pennsylvania or something that has 3 guys on it, and then there's a couple 20s surrounding it. They've got 4 or 5 guys on it, and so you've got 16 guys and 80 acres, and that's a reality in a lot of places. That's what it's like here in southern Michigan for me too. So that relative amount and like the intensity of that pressure can really impact things as well. So if that's the case where you're at, you need to try to find those little tiny pockets where they're retreating to, or you need to take everything that we just talked about and kind of ramp up the volume, the intensity of how careful you are about your own pressure, ramp that up even more. That's kind of what I have to do here in Michigan. I have to be obsessively careful. I think even more than some people. Like I didn't hunt at all on one of my main properties for 26 days because I simply needed those couple hunts when I thought conditions would be right to be as good as possible. I just didn't want to risk it because, when you make one mistake, you could be out of the ball game. And, that might be what's happening, in my case. We talked about it earlier, how Holyfield hasn't showed up since the 24th. Well, that could be because I made a mistake. That could be because I went in there on the 24th and I found out the winds were swirling, and maybe he winded me before I got out of there. Or maybe when I went in there to hunt that ground blind, but I got, infested with bees, I bust out of there. Maybe when I snuck to the other stand, that wind was not 100% right. That was kind of like a 95% wind. Maybe he was in that 5% area and he winded me. Maybe I did make one of those mistakes that you just can't afford to make in a heavily hunted area. And now maybe I'm paying the price for that, or maybe it just hasn't worked out yet. We'll see. But those are things you got to keep in mind, I think.
Yeah, to your point a minute ago, today is a perfect example. It's October 31st. And it's the first time all year I've went into what I consider to be my best set. And the conditions are perfect for it. I mean, the pressure, literally, you couldn't have got winded this morning if you tried. I mean, the way the thermals were rising, clear, crisp, blue morning, everything was, I kept scent checking it. It kept going straight up. And we were even still running, infield ozone generators and, all that good stuff. But we waited. And I'm sure we got to go through probably 70 yards of timber, before we get to our set there. And I even sprayed some nose jammer on both mine and my camera guy's boots, on the bottom of the boots. And, we talked about this last year. Once I got in there, I actually sprayed some nose jammer just kind of around the tree on the downwind side, which I've never really done that before, but I wanted to give that a try this year, based on our conversations last year. But I'm just trying to minimize what I feel like, because typically they're cruising up and down this timber flat and, looking for, available does. But today they really weren't. I don't know what, I don't know. Maybe, we were in here last night, not far from that set. and maybe, something busted us on the way in or the way out and it screwed up this morning. I don't know, but you can second guess yourself all you want. If the conditions are right, I think you got to take the risks this time of year, which it's kind of different. It depends what he's asking specifically. If he means pressure like what you're talking about from neighbors and all that stuff, that's, you can't really dictate that. But if you're talking about pressure that you're putting in, or maybe you're on a farm with a lease partner or whatever, you can control that the best of your ability and just wait for the best times to go into these spots. And that's what we're doing. I'm going to get more and more aggressive as the next few days kind of start unfolding. And then you're going to see us, if the temperature and the wind and the pressure's right, like the 6th through the 10th, I wouldn't hesitate to sit the same spot, a couple mornings in a row, just knowing how good it is and knowing, if those conditions are right, we typically don't get busted. So now that being said, this farm is not great once the Missouri gun season starts. So I kind of also know that this may be one of my last opportunities to kill something in the next 10-day window. So, that's just kind of my theory on this farm. I think it's probably very, very farm dependent on what your situation is.
Yeah, you definitely need to look at those different things coming down the line in the calendar and understand when your opportunities are going to be. So, like you said, with gun season coming for a lot of guys, if you're just a bow hunter or if you know that your farm doesn't do well during the gun season, if you're not hunting there for some reason, you got to take advantage of your conditions now, whatever they might be, especially this time of year, to get in there and make it happen. So I don't know. I think when we're talking about factors that influence the deer movement, to his question, I think the way I would rank them, and I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are, because I know that your dad and Mark have lots and lots of thoughts and opinions on this, and I'm wondering how that's influenced your thoughts. But I think probably first and foremost, hunting pressure trumps all. So I think the number one factor is hunting pressure. If there's no hunting pressure, then you can look at the rest of these, unfiltered. But if you do have hunting pressure, that's going to kind of move all these other factors on like a sliding scale up and down. I think after that, for me, it's temperature, like a cold front, a relative change in temperature. And then I think I'm still trying to understand it as well as you guys do, but that barometric pressure definitely does seem to be something that there's a correlation to. And then maybe wind speed after that maybe could be an influencing factor. I still don't know about the moon. That's something I'm still paying attention to, just like, I know that Mark and Terry talk about that all the time. I'm still trying to see in my own personal experiences how it's matching up. I'm intrigued with it. I can tell you one thing. Last week was supposed to be a red moon, which is, some guys talk about this. That's like when the moon's overhead or underfoot. And I sure didn't see some kind of amazing activity lined up with that time frame. But to our earlier discussion, there's so many other factors that can change that. So I don't know. Is that ranking similar to how you would put it too, Matt?
I think so. Weather to us, weather always trumps moon. Now, that being said, we're getting into a period here. I think the full moon's the 4th, and we're like right now, these 5 days, 5-7 days that we're leading into that full moon, evening hunts should have been really spectacular, especially through that cold front. And then I think, that 5 days preceding the full moon, those mornings are going to be, now, the mornings should be great. That's if you have good weather. And we're supposed to have some really good weather, like 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, somewhere in there. And it's supposed to get real cool. And I think the mornings they're going to be off the charts next week. Now, all that being said, I think to put to your point, to rank them, I think that temperature drop, from your average temperature for that time of year. So if it's a couple degrees or 5-10 degrees lower than that average temperature for that time of year, I think you got to be out in a stand no matter what. Cloud cover definitely affects them. I think cloud cover, personally, I feel like cloud cover is one of the biggest influences there is, because anytime I've ever been out and it's been super cloudy or there's like a low cloud shelf, it just seems to suppress movement every time. And as soon as the clouds break up and the sun pops out, that's when usually you start seeing the deer pop out. Now, a lot of times that kind of correlates with the wind speed as well. If it's windy, they seem to be real goosey. We like to see like a 7 to 12 mile an hour wind. If it's below that, below 5, they seem to be goosey. It's like an eerily quiet, type of situation. And then if it gets up to like 15 to 20, they seem to be like they're looking over their shoulder nonstop at every time a leaf blows or whatever. So wind's definitely a big factor. But you were mentioning barometric pressure. I think anytime you have those big temperature drops or changes, a lot of times you see some sort of correlation with the barometric pressure. Mark and Dad always say, like, anything above like 29.95, once you start getting up to that 30 area, and like this morning we were at like 30.25, I think. I mean, that's pretty high, and that changes depending on the time of year. Like late season, 30.3, isn't unheard of, but this time of year, if you got a 30.3, 30.4, I mean, that means that most likely it's a really, really crisp day, and it's going to be really, really sunny, and you should see a lot of deer up on their feet, especially in the morning. So this time of year. But yeah, I would say that barometric pressure, Mark and Dad look at it as much as they look at temperature. Like those would probably be top two: temperature, barometric pressure, wind speed, cloud cover. Then the moon phase, like they don't. I mean, it definitely can accentuate what's happening that time of year, but I don't think moon phase for them isn't like a total determining factor. It definitely can help highlight a certain time of year, though.
Well, I certainly hope that whatever factors out there that could help us, I hope they certainly do, because it is that time of year that we pin all of our hopes and dreams on. And I know you and I both have got some high hopes for these coming days. So I'm thinking maybe we should wrap it up and let you get back to the kids, and I'm going to try to get out there and find some way to put together a good hunt and a good story.
I hope you have. Are you going to have what type of evening weather-wise do you have there in Michigan tonight?
It's been super windy the last day and a half. It was like 30-mile-an-hour winds yesterday, and this morning probably 15, 16, 17 miles an hour. But by this evening's hunt, that's going to be dropping down to like 10, 9, 8, and it's going to be like a high probably those last few hours of the night. It's going to be like 36 degrees, 37 degrees, so cold, the wind finally dying down. I think it's going to be a good night. So I'm sitting a little, what is it? It's oats and brassicas, a little food plot tucked in tight, kind of in between two bedding areas. I haven't hunted this stand yet this year, so it could be good.
Nice. Well, I hope you kill Holyfield tonight, buddy.
Thank you. I hope so too. So let's plan on checking back in soon. And until then, our quick updates for our listeners would be, if you've got a question of your own that you'd like us to tackle in a future episode, you can do that by going to wiredtohunt.com/100% wild. And then if you want to be able to get the audio version of this podcast on your phone or wherever you listen to podcasts, just make sure you subscribe on your podcast app of choice. So that could be the Apple Podcast app, Stitcher, Google Play, etc. And if you want to follow along with my hunt for Holyfield and the different things that I've got going on, you can see all that on wiredhunt.com or the various social media channels that you like to check out. Wired Hunt is on all of them.
All right. If you want to watch this podcast that you're listening to, if you are listening and not watching, if you want to watch it, head over to the Drury Outdoors YouTube channel. And all the podcasts that we've ever done are up there under the 100% Wild podcast section. And we have a lot of cool stuff going on right now over on YouTube. We're doing a free bow giveaway at PSE. If you're wanting to subscribe to our channel, you're automatically entered in, so that's pretty cool. We're trying to reach 100,000 subscribers, and right now we're pumping out a new DoD TV episode like every single day, whether it's brand new episodes of Natural Born or the podcast, or I think today when we're filming this Halloween, I think we're throwing up like a throwback edition of like Halloween hunts, some of the best Halloween highlights, because it's always been a good day in Drury Outdoors history. So anyways, if you want to follow along to everything we're doing, the whole Drury Outdoors team, at www.druryoutdoors.com, and you can follow us at Drury Outdoors on all the social channels.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Matt, and thanks everyone for watching and listening. We appreciate it.
All right. Good luck tonight, buddy.
Thanks, man. You too in your future hunts.
All right.